Hey, I am James Kotecki, and this is the C Space Studio at CES 2025. This is day one of our two-day interview series here in the C Space Studio with leaders from advertising, marketing, media, branding, really talking about the future of human connection. And we're going to kick things off with a conversation about what else AI with Mr. Scott Likens, who is the US and Global Chief AI Engineering Officer, very cool title, at
Thank you.
PwC. Welcome to the C Space Studio.
Good morning, thanks for having us.
So of course we're going to talk about AI. Why wouldn't we lead off our conversations with AI? But first, can you just give me the quick snapshot for folks who might not be familiar or just heard the brand? What does PwC do overall?
So, of course, we're a professional services firm, a wide variety of services from assurance to tax to advisory services. And maybe something people don't know is actually deep in AI engineering and AI services.
Yeah.
So,
well, of course, AI is going to impact all of those things that you mentioned, and it's really impacting business across the board. I understand PwC has this report called the 2025 AI Business Predictions. And what can we expect from AI this year? What does that prediction report say?
so this is a report we've been doing for several years, and we try and predict out the next kind of 12 months. As you know, in the world of AI, 5 years, forget about it.
Yeah.
So this year, we really focused on the transition we're in. Last year was kind of mayhem, with the inventions that were happening. The enterprises had enormous energy around AI, but they were trying to figure out what to do with it. So this year we looked at what was going to be tangible. Things like responsible AI, what did it mean? We believe responsible AI could be the key to ROI. Doing this responsibly means we're going to get a return maybe faster than if we did it irresponsibly.
I like that phrase. I'm going to ask other people about
Absolutely.
that. I'm going to repeat that here in the C Space Studio. But everyone's talking about AI transformation, as you mentioned. I've hosted these shows for a number of years, and obviously the AI hype has gotten bigger and bigger over the last few years. But then there's always this question of what is the actual impact? So where are we actually seeing business impact? Beyond the hype, where are people actually using this to get value?
So I think if you look at the last 12 months, there was a lot of experimentation. It was focused on efficiencies. So we're trying to learn how to use this within the workforce. I think the difference with AI now, because AI has been around a long time, is it's very much intrinsic throughout the business. So depending on your industry, there's been different areas of opportunity. The efficiencies are great, but it's really about reinventing parts of the business. So you think about research and development. We think we could save probably 50% of the time you spend on research and development. Whether you're bringing a new product to market, can we do that faster? We're seeing that in drug development. Can we optimize differently and integrate that throughout our organization? We look at every function in the business and we see opportunities. And within each sector, those opportunities are bigger or smaller. So it's pretty diverse.
We should probably pause here and say, as you mentioned, AI has been here for a long time. What most people are hyped about is generative AI, or that's maybe the general understanding of, even there's some conflation, I think, between people saying AI and meaning just generative AI. When you're talking about these business impacts, are you seeing generative AI as a big part of that, or is it really just the overall growth of AI?
So I think Gen AI is the opener. Everyone wants to talk about that, and there's no doubt the invention a few years ago, or about 5, but the influence that Gen AI has had on the conversations at the executive level has brought along 70 plus years of AI research and development. So we like good old AI, machine learning, and all the things we've been doing. But Gen AI has made it easier and more ubiquitous. It's become more intrinsic. Everyone could use it. It's not just a data science tool anymore. That's the difference with Gen AI. So I think Gen AI is leading the charge. It's generating the investment, but it's also a big piece of the value.
So let's talk now about the next step, maybe, when AI is out there on its own. Let's talk AI agents. What does that mean in your context, and what are you seeing that's actually on the front lines?
Agents is a hard term to define because people think about them differently, but I look at it as a way to decompose tasks and let the machines actually think or reason instead of having a hard-coded program or a human doing these things. So I hate the term RPA of old. This is really
robotic process automation.
Robotic process automation. This is actually letting LLMs and natural language be an interface to really intelligent AI systems, and they could be traditional AI systems fronted by generative AI. So having that autonomy and that reasoning built into systems, giving us much more flexibility.
But then let's talk about the responsibility on the other side of that. When we talk about an agent, something that seems to have, I'm not going to get into terms like free will, but something that seems to be out there operating quasi-independently from a human, at least in the moment to moment of what it's out there doing. How do you then think about responsibility on the other side of that?
And that's right. I start with responsible AI as part of the design. We have to embed the guardrails in the beginning. they're not thinking necessarily, they're still using the AI.
The use of language is difficult here because we want to use words like thinking and free will, but it doesn't quite apply.
That's not truly what it is. But having the guardrails in place, and I think this era of AI, we've been talking about doing it responsibly from the beginning versus before, I think it was kind of added in the end. So I think infusing those responsible AI aspects as we design these systems, everyone wants to have trust at the end, whether it's an endpoint consumer or your workforce or your other business partners. We have to provide that trust, and our AI is the way to do that.
So if I'm a business leader hearing now about agents and agentic AI, what are some things that I can be expecting that I might be able to use this for in the coming years?
That's actually one of our predictions this year. You may be able to double your workforce, keeping the same headcount. Because these agents could provide aspects of the tasks that people do today, and to give them the superpower to be able to do much more of those tasks. So you're seeing it in customer service, you're seeing it internally in research and development, as I mentioned, in IT, generating software or building technology itself. Agents are really good at those things already. And as the large language models get more intelligent, they can do more reasoning, more semi-thinking, or whatever term we want to use, we start to infuse that into bigger parts of the process, not just task level, so those multi-agent systems. So think about your workforce expanding without actually increasing your headcount.
And in some cases, they can roam around the World Wide Web and like go to websites and make decisions or like click on things and do things like that.
Yeah, that agent computer interface, being able to actually control the computer, the promise of what robotic process automation was, but looking at the web, having more real-time information. You're seeing models by specific vendors saying we have up-to-date information. So yeah, that intelligence at your fingertips, that's just a superpower for your workforce.
But people still need to be, I assume, observant of what's going on, and there still needs to be a human involved.
Humans in the loop.
Yeah.
We have to have humans in the loop. The actual judgment, the actual final reasoning should be humans. These are accelerators. These are going to take large parts of our tasks and make them faster, but humans should be deciding.
Another trend that we've seen come up in past years here in the C-Space studio, blockchain, Web3. Not everybody wants to talk about that anymore, at least not to the same degree. But yeah, I want to ask you, where are we in that hype cycle, and then where are we in the reality of it?
Well, I'm a huge fan of the blockchain architecture, and I'd say over the past few years, it's been silently growing to a point where it's actually becoming very ubiquitous in certain areas of financial systems. So while we think about the crypto side of it, the infrastructure of blockchain is being infused across a lot of systems. And if you think about the promise of maybe Web3, I think we're almost at Web4, where we now can control value and identity and interchange mathematically, which is great. Adding and infusing AI agents so we have autonomy and decision making and reasoning, like we start to really get to some of the promise that we had years ago.
Speaking of promising technologies, I also want to ask you about quantum computing. Because look, you're doing it all over there at PwC, and quantum computing is definitely a hot topic here at CES 2025. What are you seeing there, and what are you doing in reality?
I'd say the past few years, we've seen some really amazing, maybe not breakthroughs, there's been some headlines, but there's been much more investment. I think we're finally taking it seriously here in the US. I know globally there's different strategies, but we're starting to really see some of the theories be proven. So to me, what quantum gives us is the ability to process much more permutation of data all at once, right? Without getting into the quantum mechanics of it. So these mean bigger problem sets, bigger optimizations, more ability to go after really hard problems. Material sciences, drug development, climate, things that are hard for us to solve on classical systems. Quantum systems may give us some of those breakthroughs. Is it here today? Everyone will argue yes or no, but you see the investment, you see the increase in patents, the increase in headlines, the increase in startups. That's why it's exciting to me. We see it coming.
How do you keep all this straight? Because we've got this convergence, at least, just here on this stage, we're talking about three major trends, Web3, Web3, quantum, and AI. If these three things just develop separately, if they all converge, if they all explode into some kind of new, dramatically new version of the world, like, how are you keeping all of this straight and thinking about how to actually make tangible recommendations to your clients?
I have a really brilliant team, and I rely on them to think in the horizons 1, 2, and 3. 1, we can do today. 2 is right in front of us, and 3 is those big moonshots. And for us, it's about bringing practicality to it. We're working with enterprises that want to know, what can I do today, but what do I need to prepare for? Quantum is an example. How do you build a workforce that understands quantum mechanics and the mathematics behind quantum AI? That's a whole different ballgame.
What's your favorite Horizon 3 notion right now?
So I'm a huge fan of what's going on in space tech, obviously not core to our business, but I just see that as pushing the pace of innovation from material sciences to rocket engineering to AI. It's really covering the gamut. So I think that is pushing the pace.
Is there a question that you think I should ask other people here in the C-Space studio?
Why are they going so slow? I think it's a really challenging time. So how are they adapting to the pace of change? I think that's the difference. The time scale has shrunk to days or weeks versus months or years.
Why are they moving so slow, or how are they hanging on for dear life, right?
Yeah.
Scott Likens, PwC, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for joining us here in the C-Space studio at CES 2025. We are going to be live all day. Stay with us. I'm James Kotecki. Right on the money.
Boom. Good job.
Cheers. Thanks, man.
Awesome.
That was really fun. You were right there with me. I really appreciate it.
Voice mostly held out.
Welcome back. You're in the C-Space studio with me, James Kotecki, live at CES 2025, a futuristic year, if ever there was one. And we're here with Jim Wilson, president of MadHive. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So MadHive, cool name. Tell us about the brand and what it really means now for 2025.
MadHive stands for Local Media Transformation and Growth. I mean, we develop tools and platforms that enable brands to reach local audiences.
So tell us about what that looks like. When we say local media, we're talking mostly about digital media. Like, give me some tangible.
Yeah, so I don't know, back in 2016, I started a business at Tegna called Premion. And Premion was really about the future of streaming television and how local brands and local advertisers were looking to get access to advertising on local. And so in building that brand, we partnered with MadHive as our technology platform, essentially a DSP that enables not only Premion, but a number of other broadcasters and local agencies deliver campaigns via connected television.
Yeah. So when we think about the challenges that a local brand might have before kind of coming in contact with someone like MadHive, what are some of those challenges in terms of I mean, and what kind of brands are we talking about? Like a car dealership, like a local? We really literally talking about your mom and pop local stores?
It's actually any brand that's looking to get down to a local audience.
I see.
And so it could be, yeah, I mean, when we started it, it really was, the first campaign that we ran was with a local Texas Honda dealer that was looking to deliver campaigns into a couple of zip codes.
Yeah.
And then within 4 months, we had the entire Tier 2 Chevy business. And so, in other words, national brands that are looking to reach audiences at local, you know, really, I'm a huge fan, obviously, of local, because I really believe that all brands should be thinking locally. Like, if you have the ability to reach an audience in a specific geography, which in and of itself has context, and deliver creative into that context to maximize the opportunity. It's really the way I think about it. And so we at MadHive have been building out our CTV DSP platform, and then this past year we bought a company called Frequenz that allows us now to move more omni-channel so that we can really sort of track those, you know, customer buys and really start thinking about more interesting things like customer journeys at local. Because really everything that you think about, you know, down at local is the movement of consumers within their communities.
Yeah, people at a local level obviously think locally even if they're interacting with these national brands.
You know, I spent 4 years in out of home, but between Premion and MadHive, and really out of home, if you think about it, is, you are actually delivering a message onto a specific sign in a certain neighborhood with context, reach an audience within a certain amount of content. And we look to do the same thing at MadHive, and that's where we continue to go, and where, you know, AI and other technologies are now allowing us to go further and further in that level of precision. So I think if anybody really needs to know about local, it's complex and it requires a lot of precision, and that's what we are working on perfecting at MadHive.
I mean, somebody might think about, you know, let's just take the United States, for example, because we're here in the United States right now, US culture as being relatively homogenized, or the complaint being that it gets more and more homogenized, or that kind of national news, you know, dominates even local politics and things like that. But from where you stand, how important or how much power does local still have? Is this kind of an underserved, kind of underlooked component here because people maybe are thinking almost too nationally in their concept of America, for example?
Yeah, I think a little bit differently. I don't think America is homogenous at all. I do. I think if we've learned anything in the last, say, 5 years, is that we are a collection of communities. And, you know, I'll just pick my community in New York is very different than my aunt and uncle's community in Alabama, or you know, communities that I've been to around the country when I travel around and meet with TV stations. You know, there are different communities out there, and I think what we're doing is recognizing that these communities are different, and that the ad message that needs to be delivered into one community versus another should reflect that community.
Yeah.
And so that's where we're focused.
So let's talk more about the intersection of shopping and media. How does your technology show up for someone in a local community who's interested in shopping for a certain thing? Tell me about the different touch points and places where they would interact with something that you've touched.
Yeah, so, you know, it was, you know, up until this year, it was connected television. So it was, you know, whether you're in your living room or on your device, it is delivering an ad that you are looking to sort of track to some sort of outcome. And with the acquisition of Frequenz, which is more of an omnichannel or multi-channel approach, we now have the ability to plan out our campaigns across media, right? And at the end of the day, what I get really excited about is the various touch points with the consumer that then lead to an outcome, and that outcome is at retail. It could be at a gym, it could be at a restaurant, and so retail media networks are really interesting. Now they've been very focused on themselves, but to the extent that they can come into the overall media mix, we're really going to be tracking these path to purchase or customer journeys, and that's what we look to do. And so partnering with retail media networks is something that we are already doing and working on, and so you know, at the end of the day, it's really then sort of figuring out within that, you know, that media mix, which forms of media, which media mix is going to lead to the best outcome.
And does that retail media partnership include media that happens in stores themselves?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. In stores, yes, or other types of media. There's, you know, really interesting companies like gas station television, right, that has screens in, you know, tens of thousands of locations in gas stations. So.
You talked about connected TV being a core part of your business. What do you see as the streaming milestones that are coming in 2025? That business is obviously evolving. The advertising mix in that business continues to evolve. What are you seeing for 2025?
Well, I think we're going to continue to see increased advertising tiers, right? Larger audiences. I think we'll continue to see more event content come on. I mean, you know, the NFL on Netflix over the holidays, Beyonce doing a concert. So we're going to see more events, more premiering, obviously, on streaming networks than we have before. So, and then at the same time, I think, you know, we're going to continue to see more consolidation in the industry. I think, you know, Disney and Fubo is another example of it. And consolidation is really important. And really, at the end of the day, MadHive was created to solve for fragmentation. We have a very fragmented buying base with local, and they want access to tools and technologies and to the content that bigger ads have. And so, and having grown up in a local business that advertised on TV and radio, like the opportunity to be able to place an ad through a MadHive or other ad tech platform into a streaming service is really what we're really looking to democratize all of it.
Tell me about something that you're building today, does any of it feel like science fiction? Does any of it feel like it's really kind of cutting edge?
I think so. Look, I've spent a whole career in technology and video games and everything like that, and so the ability to reach consumers is always something that I find incredibly interesting. And AI is obviously much talked about, and many people say it's coming, but it's actually here. And we are focused on a product. Again, the evolution of our business and our marketing mix or omnichannel proposal platform. We're building out a product called Maverick, and Maverick is really, just consuming a significant amount of data in terms of campaigns that we have run in the past, and then taking in information into local markets. So, being able to focus on a specific geography, reach an audience, add context, look at what your competitors are doing, and produce, through automation, very smart proposals that not only educate the customer, but we work with we work with thousands of local sellers in our ecosystem. So the ability for that Maverick platform to not only be a proposal platform, but actually a learning platform at the same time, so they continuously educate, because the market is constantly changing, and sellers and advertisers really need to be informed about that.
And will we see a future, and maybe you're building towards this, where, and I think you're kind of hinting at this, like the creative itself is influenced by the data that you have, and are you able to use generative AI to say use a certain kind of language, or refer to this local hotspot, or literally like data about all of these locations that feels very colloquial to those people?
So absolutely, we have a creative team internally that is already doing that, but AI is only going to enhance that.
Yeah.
Having worked in the out-of-home space, having creative content that is tailored to literally a physical sign, being able to tailor creative into local markets through AI is something that we're continuing to develop.
Jim Wilson, Mad Hive, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me here.
And thank you so much for watching. This is the C-Space Studio at CES 2025. I'm James Kotecki. Don't go anywhere, because more conversations are just ahead. Welcome back. You're in the C-Space studio sponsored by Integral Ad Science. I'm your host, James Kotecki, and we're here at CES 2025. Joining us right now, Rob Caruso, Director of Product Management and UX, Google TV. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Thanks so much for being here. What is your message here at CES? What brings you here?
What brings us here this year, more so than years past, is really thinking about the future of Google TV with respect to AI and Gemini models really enhancing the overall TV experience. So beyond just content consumption, but also how the TV can better play in the home in a variety of use cases beyond, again, just leaning back and watching video.
And let's just make sure everybody knows what Google TV is in the kind of pantheon of different, so people might know YouTube TV, like what is Google TV specifically?
Sure, great question, thanks. So Google TV is a smart TV operating system that powers smart TVs around the world. We're on over 270 million devices around the world. We work with OEM partners that build the TVs themselves, TCL, Hisense, Sony, some of our more well-known partners here in the US. We also work with a number of operators, cable operators and telcos around the world that also integrate our operating system into the set-top boxes that power their video services for their customers.
And the consumers who have this, are they seeing the word Google on their screen? Are they getting a Google experience?
Sure, so it's a Google forward experience, it's personalized, it's very much anchored on entitled content. One of the biggest asks and requests from users around the world in the advent of smart TV is really, I want all my content in one place. So that's really sort of the
content I'm entitled to, because I have Netflix, I have HBO, I have all these things.
So that's sort of the core mission that really helped Google TV launch as a platform. So we integrate with all the different SVOD and AVOD providers around the world and try to bring a very personalized experience to get users the content that they want.
So let's get into that AI component that you were talking about at the beginning. What is changing? What will consumers be experiencing now thanks to Gemini and AI?
Sure, so another great question. So AI has really always been part of the Google TV story. That whole personalization layer is very much AI driven in analyzing your likes, your tastes, your preferences, your behaviors, and then bringing forward to you what you would already want to watch or are already watching, and then also being a little bit more predictive of things that you may enjoy. Going a step further than just personalizing the user experience itself, we're now dabbling this earlier, I guess last year now, we announced and launched a smart home integration on Google TV with other parts of Google in our Home and Nest offerings that bring a number of different devices from Google and from other partners to the forefront on the TV. Now with using AI, we're going to be more predictive in those devices, what's happening on those devices, bringing alerts to the screen as well. So deeper integration with the smart home, and then more capabilities within those devices as well. Something else we announced this week is really turning the TV into a more ambient experience. These TVs are beautiful, mostly the largest screens in the home. And we believe that they can do a lot more and provide more value to users than, again, just streaming content. So bringing experiences where you can converse with your TV and even generate images, generate video in a more communal experience, but also detect a user's need state and adapt the screen accordingly. So there are times where the TV can act more as a smart display, more as an art frame, and also just a lean back consumption device.
And how have you seen in maybe the initial getting into this, as far as how consumers are comfortable with the TV listening to them and adapting to what they're saying? Obviously, if I'm talking directly at the TV and I'm saying, generate me a picture, and I want to do that, that's one thing. If it notices that I'm talking about businessy stuff and then it puts something related to my business on the TV, are people cool with that? You know, do they like that level of listening?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that's where we're going. It's not an always on, always listening concept per se, but if you're familiar with smart displays and smart speakers, there's a keyword, right, that will kick off whether or not you want deeper interaction. So we're really bringing that to the forefront on the TVs themselves. So thinking about integrating this proliferation of smart devices that has really grown in the past 5, 6, 7 years, and bringing that all into one, right, into one unit, into the smart TV. So asking the TV, conversing with it, I think we're very comfortable in stating that users are comfortable with that, if they so choose to. If they don't, that's also fine, fine and well. The detection that we're doing is also obviously privacy is top of mind and very privacy compliant. We're doing this with more proximity sensors and detection as opposed to always needing to listen or even see what's happening in the space.
I imagine that having it as a living room experience, so to speak, kind of changes the dynamic a little bit. I like to use generative AI sometimes with my kids just to have fun. Like, let's invent a story. Let's draw a crazy picture of something that you're imagining, and to do that in kind of a communal experience, it opens up new possibilities.
It opens up new possibilities. It becomes, like many other things that you could do in a communal setting, whether with family or friends.
Or business too, right?
Or
you can
business,
ideate and brainstorm.
But that shared experience and that shared device on the wall does open up entirely different use cases than, say, a tablet or a laptop, or even huddling around a mobile device. So earlier last year, we announced a generative AI screensaver capability. And again, the use cases that are emerging from that are more of what you just described, which is families sitting around, passing the mic, and creating different experiences and different pieces of art.
Once people do get into their, sit down and really want to have that smart TV experience with that content that they're entitled to, they're faced with a myriad number of streaming services, and obviously streaming is continuing to evolve. What are the milestones on streaming that you're looking at in 2025 and how that relates to your business?
It's a good question. I'd say our goals are consistent in bringing an entitled experience to users. Right now, we balance that with our other partners. So I build as a product leader for multiple constituents. We're talking a lot about the user in their living room, but the partners that build content and create content, they're also a user of our platform.
I see.
So we have to balance that entitlement and those milestones and the goals of getting users to what they want with also promoting and getting content in front of users that they may like, that is helpful for them, but also helpful for the content producers as well. And I think the rise of ad-supported content is an interesting opportunity for us, because by nature, everyone's entitled to it. So we tick that box. But the discovery of that now plethora of new content channels, et cetera, I think is an opportunity and a milestone that we're going to be very focused on. And how do we expose that to users beyond the corpus of content that they might have been using for the past few years?
And are you starting to think about opportunities maybe for those streaming partners that you're talking about at the intersection of generative AI and advertising? Is that in the mix in the conversation?
I think it's an opportunity for smart TV and for connected TV in general. I think there are different parts of the value chain and ecosystem that are probably more focused on those areas than maybe Google TV is. But I absolutely think that is going to be something in 2025 and beyond where we're going to see leaps and bounds in the advertising experience because of what generative AI can do.
Fill in the blank for me. 2025 will be the year of blank.
2025 will be the year of AI experiences on TV.
Absolutely. And last question, I'm just curious about your background, because you've worked at HBO, you've worked at Netflix. I mean, every company is a media company, every company is a tech company, let's just say that. But those two companies are closer to like the media side of the spectrum, if people might think about it. Google's maybe more of a tech company. Was there a shift coming into Google for you? Was there a change in how you needed to kind of shift your mindset?
Yes and no. I would say when I joined Netflix, it was definitely more in the tech company phase. It was rebuilding media and entertainment. Everything from the pipeline to the delivery to the experiences. I think they've shifted and evolved to much more of a media company as they've basically built the technology infrastructure for streaming. I've worked with Google for years in my days at HBO and in my days at Netflix, so transitioning to Google and the product and the platform was actually not that difficult because of that experience from the past.
Because this is what's interesting, because you're kind of like the embodiment of this convergence of tech and media into this glorious future that we're all building.
I've never thought of it that way, but it's been a fun.
You are the avatar for the future, sir, and we are glad to have spoken with you. Rob Caruso, Google TV. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for watching us here in the C-Space studio at CES 2025. We are live all day. I'm James Kotecki. Don't go anywhere, because more great conversations are just ahead. Hey, welcome back. You're in the C-Space studio with me, James Kotecki. We are at CES 2025, and joining us right now is Paul Newman, Managing Director of Tech at Future, which is a very CES futuristic sounding title, I must say. So let's explain to people what Future is and what Future's brand is all about.
Good start point. So I'm here to represent Future's consumer technology media brands. We are the largest technology consumer publisher in the United States and have been for the last 3.5 years, according to ComScore. We address 50 million users in the United States each month and 100 million worldwide. And our brands include really well-known mainstream technology titles like Tech Radar and Tom's Guide, which probably the majority of people would know, but also specialist brands like Tom's Hardware and Windows Central. But the thing that unifies all of those brands is that we produce trusted content based on authentic human expertise.
So your reporters, your staff, I assume, are all over CES. This is the place where you want to be.
Absolutely. We have a fleet of about 40 people out on the show floor in the various kind of locations, reporting on the latest developments and making sure that we make sense of what's happening here for our users.
And just for clarification, are you the managing director of the technology that powers this publishing company, or are you the managing director of the content of technology that you're talking about?
So I'm the managing director of the content of the technology that we talk about.
Yeah. And so what does CES 2025 mean for you then? What are some of the big trends that you're seeing, and how do you think about a show this size and scope at this moment?
So the two really important things for us when we attend CES, first of all, is to understand how the industry is changing and how the industry is evolving. And then we can contextualize that and make sense of it for our users and hopefully connect the industry more closely with their target consumers in doing so. The second aspect of it for us is very much about engaging with our industry partners. And it's really important that we take the opportunity to remind them that human intellect and creativity remains at the heart of what we do, and that's why we have an audience of 50 million trusted consumers in the United States and why we're a great platform for them to engage with to get their message across.
Human creativity, obviously really important. How much does AI play a role? I want to ask multiple questions about AI, obviously, but just first of all, how much does AI play a role in what you publish? How much are your reporters using AI to create content to augment what they do?
Yeah, great question. So I think full disclosure up front, we do not use generative AI to create any content at Future. And actually we've got some really strict policies in place to make sure that that can't happen even accidentally. We view AI very much as a keystone technology, not just for publishing, but a keystone technology for any industry in today's world and increasingly so. And what that means is that we think that AI should, can, and will be integrated into pretty much every stage of the workflow. So if it's a simple co-pilot for our journalists and our editors on the CMS side, which enables them to kind of work more effectively, then we'll integrate AI there. But equally at the opposite end of the equation, it could be a very large platform-wide implementation that helps something like recirculation across our network of sites. So AI is something that we will be embracing increasingly going forward. We've got two different types of AI integration on Future Tech sites. We've got what I call horizontal integrations and vertical integrations. And a horizontal integration might be a technology that's working in the background and is helping users to get more value from their visit, but they don't necessarily need to know that they're actually engaging with an AI product. But then you have a vertical integration, which might be the AI chatbot on our site, Tom's Hardware, Hammerbot, which is there to kind of help people with rich functionality discover the content on the site through natural language queries their way. So that's how we look at it.
But you mentioned earlier, kind of in the messaging to your partners, being very human, creative, forward. It sounds like you're still really pitching the idea that human creativity is still an essential value add here, a secret weapon, if you will, not so secret weapon. And are you finding that your partners really resonate with that?
I think it's incredibly important, and I think our partners understand that as well. Ultimately, we live in a world where trust is absolutely critical, particularly with media brands. We've had a few scares. I don't want to sort of dwell on the negative side of it, but maybe we've had a few scares in media over the use of AI and other areas of society where perhaps consumers haven't quite been comfortable about that. So we see those as kind of really enduring values to underpin the value in our business. And that helps us to engage with our partners and help them to kind of process their messages so that we can ensure that we stay relevant to our users, but we're also going at the same pace that they are.
I think you're exactly the right person to talk about this because you're at this extremely tech-forward company, you're serving a very tech-forward audience, and so you have these very explicit policies, though, in place around the use of generative AI. How do you think about creating those policies and those guardrails to make sure that you're using AI in a responsible and ethical way?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the unifying characteristic of Future over the 40 years that we've been operating, it's our 40th anniversary this year, is that we've always operated under the golden rule: understand the needs of your readers and satisfy them. So the commitment that we've made during this new era of AI is to make sure that we regularly survey the attitudes of our consumers and our audience about how they feel about AI, and that helps us to inform what we do. And I think we're probably unique in terms of technology publishers that we run a quarterly AI sentiment tracker. So that enables us to get up-to-the-minute insights on how readers are thinking and feeling about AI.
Yeah.
And that's actually given us some pretty interesting kind of data so far. So the last research that we did showed that AI functionality was only 9th on a list of priorities for readers when they were thinking about making a purchase.
Oh.
And even when you kind of tightened that kind of net down to the real hardcore kind of early adopter techies, it was only 7th.
Wow.
64% of our users actually said they don't care if something is AI. What they care about is the real world benefits to them.
If it works.
Improves their life.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So we have to be the interlocutors, if you like, between the industry and between consumers. Consumers don't necessarily need to always know that AI is involved with something, but they do need to understand what the benefits of that are. And there are different market segments to address as well. You know, your really early adopters on really technical sites that we have an expectation that you're covering AI and using it. On the more generalist sites, people might have less experience and maybe even a little bit of fear still about what AI can do. So we have to look at all of those things very carefully. We flex in line with what the sentiments of our consumers are telling us. We've got some new research coming in January, later this month, which should give us an update on how things are kind of changing and evolving. So we'd expect to see that kind of position change. But if you go back to the journalistic kind of principles of it in terms of the editorial, I can't see a situation anytime soon where human creativity is going to be surplus to requirements.
Yeah.
It's got a pretty awesome track record when you look back through history.
Fascinating. I want to talk just for a moment about shopping and media and the intersection of what's happening there. What are you seeing as a publisher as far as how your customers or how your partners want to kind of make those connections?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I know you're not asking purely in the context of AI, but that's one area where I think we can see some real kind of like gains in terms of our brands and how we engage with our users. So if you look at our sites, our core strength is in product reviews. So the likes of TechRadar and Tom's Guide are hugely successful brands because they have a really strong presence in organic search and they deliver really highly qualified readers onto our site that then transact with an affiliate partner. What we're not so good at is the kind of more nuanced shopping journeys when perhaps people have a more complex requirement, or maybe they've got like a shopping list of items. So, for instance, they might be wanting to kit out a smart home with a suite of products, or they might be building a PC. One of the functionalities that we developed for our sister site in the women's lifestyle space, Who, What, Where, is a new chatbot called ISA, I-S-A, Intelligent Shopping Assistant.
Okay.
And ISA will actually build you a capsule wardrobe, or like a virtual makeup bag, if you like, based on the natural language queries that you type in, give you your shopping list, and then allow you to kind of transact with that. So I think what we're definitely going to be seeing more of is the personalization that AI can really help to kind of create to make those user journeys more kind of authentic and targeted. But also, if you look beyond AI, we see streaming video being a really big opportunity for us going forward. So we did a couple of experiments, or not necessarily experiments, but for the first time we deployed streaming video with partners during Labor Day on Tom's Guide with a partner called Sleep Number, which is mattress and bedding business in the States here, and also during the Black Friday shopping period. And that's a great way for us to transact with consumers that are maybe more visual, maybe a younger demographic that's more short-form social media oriented, but also to create value and transactions from our partners in doing so. So we definitely see a lot of excitement in that space.
Paul, you've mentioned a lot of future brands. I understand The Week is another one of your brands. I'm not sure if you work on that directly, but just a quick shout out to The Week. My family, we are huge fans of The Week Junior in our house. So I can attest to the quality of the content in that arena as well. And all of your insights have been fantastic today, Paul. Thank you so much for joining us here.
Excellent. Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for watching. This is the C-Space Studio. I am James Kotecki. This is CES 2025, and you are, hopefully, going to come back and watch a lot more of these conversations coming your way very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back to the C-Space studio here at CES 2025. I am James Kotecki here with not one, but two great guests. All the way to my left, Mark Grabowski, Chief Operating Officer, Integral Ad Science, and Christy Argalan, Global Head of Uber Advertising at Uber, obviously, to my immediate left. And Mark, thanks for sponsoring the C-Space studio here. Integral Ad Science has been our sponsor now for 2 years. Not only do you bring sponsorship, you also bring great insights to the studio, and we expect this conversation will be no exception.
Thanks so much. It's a pleasure to do that. You bring such great brands together, great partners together, and just such great content for the community.
Well, thank you so much. And I don't want to put too much pressure on either of you. I understand you're both relatively new in your roles. Christy, we were saying this is like day 4 for you at Uber, but you come with obviously so much industry experience. This is going to be a great conversation. But I would like to just know from both of you, Christy, maybe we'll start with you. What are you up to? What brought you to Uber, and kind of what's your purview there?
Yeah, so you know my history. I've been in the retail media space, the commerce media space, for a while now, in many regards before it was the hot thing to talk about. And what brought me to Uber is really the opportunity to take a business that is loaded with an emotional connection with their customers, and to really take it and bring it to the market in an interesting, scalable, repeatable proposition. And it's an ads business that has an enormous amount of momentum behind it, and because we all personally engage with Uber on a daily basis, and to understand how to bring that to the media sector is really exciting for me.
And these are the ads we see on our devices when we book an Uber, on the backs of the seats when we're in the Uber. This is all the ads in that ecosystem that we're talking about.
That's exactly right.
And Mark, I'd love you to just kind of define the brand of Integral Ad Science for our viewers, and what your place in the organization is.
I'd be happy to. So I joined about 3 months ago, and I joined as the COO, as you mentioned. I've had a chance to spend a lot of time in the industry, about 25 years in the industry, and I've seen so many different shifts. The biggest shift that we're seeing right now is obviously a shift to everyone's using AI for a lot of different things, but it has to be based on a foundation of trust, integrity, and utilization of data properly. When I joined IAS, I saw that IAS had been used by tremendous brands all over the world for things like brand safety, brand suitability, measurement. But one of the things that was an untapped potential was using that data that's gathered to help drive performance, to help drive better outcomes for customers. And that was something that our product team has had the opportunity to do, great partners have had the opportunity to collaborate on in terms of how we can unleash all of that incredible data, put it in the hands of marketers, put it in the hands of publishers so they can make better decisions for their investments.
Yeah. And Christy, how important is that from your perspective as the partner, that kind of data, that brand safety element that IAS brings to the table?
Yeah, I think it's an incredibly important space. And when you think of what retail media and commerce media is built on, it's based on first-party data. And it also is an opportunity for brands to engage in a really insightful way with customers, consumers. And so if it's not treated with respect and consideration for what experience that audience wants, the business falls apart. So doing it with integrity and clarity and as much information as we can is incredibly important.
So I'll go back to you, Christy, and then we'll go to you, Mark. At the beginning here of 2025, we're all about trends and big foresight into what's going to be happening in the year to come. What's exciting to you at the intersection of shopping and media right now? And what are the trends that you're watching for? Some of them you'll be driving, obviously, but what are also the macro trends that you're watching for as the year evolves?
Yeah, I think that one of the places that we've been is that we've just been trying to make retail media in particular just more efficient. So how do we move more campaigns through the system? How do we get more activities live? But now to be able to move to the place where we start to think about, and so that was a lot of that was AI and machine based, just how do you carry the volume? Now to move to a place where we can start to pull in more insights and make those insights more actionable is the place that I'm really excited to move into. And then coming out of that is going to be richer content. Because right now we have a lot of real basic blocking and tackling content that we're putting out into the world. How do you get to that richer place where it's really engaging because we have insights in terms of what is that audience doing in that moment, and what kind of content should a brand be putting in front of them.
And Mark, richer data, richer insights, that's really speaking your language, obviously.
It definitely is. Something that you just talked about, we ride along with every single impression for a customer. And I spent about a week and a half in Europe just before the holiday break, and we were talking with brands, and they were saying, you see more interactions with our customers than even our agencies do. Because a global brand might have multiple agency buying strategies, they might have multiple DSPs, but the only company that can see every single interaction with every single customer of these major global brands is IAS. And when we see that, we can gather a lot of insights. We can take the audience strategy, first party and third party audience strategy, and start to marry that to what the users are seeing in context with the type of attention, with the type of sentiment the content is creating, and being able to bring all of that information back to the brand so they can make better decisions on it. You're right, it is a data strategy, but it's taking a different layer of data.
Christy talked about moving from a blocking and tackling world into something that's more rich and maybe more nuanced. Maybe that's my term. But in terms of opportunity and potential, Mark, I always struggle with exactly how to ask this question, but it just seems like what you are capable of doing now and what brands are actually doing now and what they will be capable of doing in the very near future, there's so much more opportunity and potential there to reach customers in an effective, efficient, and engaging way. Is there any way that you kind of define or ballpark the amount of opportunity that is still untapped?
Absolutely. So if we think about all of the dollars that are being spent on programmatic, I think it's 88 billion by 2027, then we think about all of the dollars spent on social and CTV. And then you hear stats, and we've got some research that shows that if people see an ad in context that is not appealing context to them, they're 55% likely to engage with that brand and buy products from that brand. So that's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of saying, all right, how do we avoid being around bad areas? But that also gets your brain to start to think about what happens when you're actually engaging with a brand in positive areas, in good areas. When we look at video, and we have a technology where we can see frame by frame by frame, every single thing that's shown on a video. Obviously that was used initially for avoidance to make sure you're avoiding bad content. Right. But you can't do that on a manual basis. That is AI driven. And that gives you the opportunity then to say, all right, can we then target? Can we now make sure that we're in the environments where the content is positive? Right. We take that, you start to couple that with contextual targeting, you start to couple that with outcomes and then auction dynamics. Like that is where this space is going.
Yeah, and there's a real big difference between being safe and creating an emotional connection.
Yes.
Very big difference.
Christy, do you have any bold predictions for the next 5 years is a ridiculous time frame at a place like CES where everything moves so quickly.
Right.
But over the next 5 years, do you have any bold predictions about your industry or your business that people might find implausible, but that you think is possible, but given where we are today?
Oh my gosh! You know what? I probably a couple of areas that I'm just super intrigued by. I think the first one is we talk about retail media as being media, but I actually think that there are some component parts of retail media that are even richer for the industry. So audience data, insights, different ways to measure. That gets us out of buying ads only and bringing all of the assets that retail media actually has access to the marketplace in new commercial models. So I think that's going to be really interesting. And then who are the partners and platforms that are fueling that? We have a couple of platforms right now in our space, but there is opportunity for much more significant platform options to come into our space that are a better solution so that you can look at these retail media through an omni-channel sort of way versus tactic by tactic, which is where we are right now.
And from a philosophical perspective, Christy, how do you do all this in a way that consumers and advertisers and platforms like it and trust it?
Right.
How do you think about that philosophically?
Yeah, I think that's the big question right now, isn't it? And so when you talk to brands, they're spending an enormous amount of time trying to figure out how to answer that question for themselves. I think we as a media sector have to figure out how to drive that even more so. We're doing a lot of work with the IAB on standardization, our whole category is, and I'm personally very involved in that, and I think laying down some of those foundational standards so that we can then get more insightful and creative on top of it is the area that we're leaning into right now.
Mark, we'll give you the last word for any bold thoughts heading into 2025.
Well, I'm so excited to see where the commerce media space is going in general, just to see brands that have been very strong advertisers building a data strategy, becoming destinations. I think that that's a space we're going to continue to see grow. We're going to definitely see people take different sets of data, understand more about that, and really build better connections with their customers. I like what you said, Christy. So while you might have given me the last word, I'm going to really give that to you. In terms of building the connections, building emotional connections with customers. It's not just bits and bytes, but it's building those emotional connections, building trust, and respecting the trust of your consumers.
Well, Christy and Mark, thank you so much for joining us here in the C-Space studio. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And of course, thank you to Integral Ad Science for sponsoring. We're going to hear more from Integral Ad Science later as our conversations continue, and we're going to hear from so many leaders here in the C-Space studio that you don't want to miss any of it. This is CES 2025. I'm James Kotecki. It's the C-Space studio. Stay with us. Welcome back to the C-Space studio. We are here at CES 2025. I am James This is live, by the way. I'm James Kotecki, and I was going to say I'm here with one of my all-time favorite guests, Duncan Crabtree Ireland. That's right, you're one of my all-time favorites, National Executive Director and Chief Negotiator at SAG-AFTRA. This is like the 6th or 7th time we've had one of these conversations at CES. Welcome back to the C-Space studio.
Thanks so much, James. It's always fun to talk to you.
Okay, so SAG-AFTRA, the union that represents performers and actors, why do you have such a focus around technology? Why do you keep coming back to CES?
Well, we've been coming to CES for more than 20 years, James, and I think really it's because we know that technology is and continues to have a huge impact on our members and the entertainment industry. And I think that was amply demonstrated by the events of a little more than a year ago.
Yes.
A huge battle over AI and how it should or shouldn't be implemented in the industry. So, keeping ahead of the technology, that's what it's all about.
So last year, you were coming off the strike. The writers' union had also gone on strike. AI and its use, as you're saying, was a huge component of those strikes. And I remember saying to you here in the C-Space studio at the time that you had made some kind of a deal with the studios, or part of your agreement was that you could talk to the studios periodically and just ask them, like, what are you doing with AI? So have you had those conversations, and what are they doing with AI behind the scenes?
Yeah, we're starting to have those conversations. Part of that deal also is that we can't publicly share the information that we get in those conversations. And you can understand it, because that's not all of them together in a room with us. That's one by one, because frankly, even though they're all together when they negotiate with us, they're very big competitors with each other. They don't want to share their inside strategies with each other. So I can't really comment too much on that, other than to say, yes, we're having those conversations. And I think it's really important for the future of bargaining, for the future of finding pathways to avoid a repeat of what happened in 2023.
Just the awareness of the technology, which is again why you're here at CES.
Yeah, and what they want to do with it. Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess maybe if I can ask in a general way, are you more or less concerned having had these meetings with, like, oh, they're doing advanced AI that's far beyond anything I imagined, or they thought they were going to do something but they're going a different way, or what's the general sense?
I think implementation is cautious. Part of that is because the intellectual property landscape is very unsettled still. There's lots of litigation going on over how you can train AI systems, et cetera, and so that hasn't really been resolved. But I think also, I think the companies are starting to recognize, certainly it's something I've been pushing, which is what makes each of those companies special and unique are the human creative talent that they partner with. And they really have to treasure and value those collaborations. So I think they want to use AI technology, they want to implement it, but there is in many ways, a cautious pace. The one exception to that, James, is in voice performance. That seems to be on the cutting edge of implementation of AI technology, voice replication, and even synthetic voices, and it's an area we're really concerned about and very focused on right now.
We've actually talked about that in the past here at the C-Space studio, and I understand that when it's done right, when it's done with consent and everybody on board with it, it can be a very effective and a great tool. What are your concerns there? Is it maybe, I'm just guessing, is it the idea of like a sound-alike voice, like someone who's, I want a James Earl Jones type, but I'm not going to pay for James Earl Jones, so I'll just get something that's pretty close and replicate almost?
Well, I mean, there has been, that has been something that's been done without AI technology for a long time. But if you look at there was obviously a very public example with OpenAI and Scarlett Johansson. And voice is really important to people. A recognizable voice is part of a performer's identity.
And this was where it was speaking in a voice that reminded a lot of people of Scarlett Johansson, and Scarlett Johansson had some kind of conversations with them, and it kind of became a whole kerfuffle.
Right. I mean, there's a whole debate over whether it's actually trained on her voice or not. I'm not going to weigh in on that, but clearly the company had come to her, she said no, and then they went forward with a voice that a lot of people thought was her voice, and that was a problem.
So do you have, because of the way that, we talked about sound-alike voices could be done in the past, but now I imagine you could get through AI something that's so close, but then maybe based on some legal parameters, not quite to where they could skirt around some kind of law or regulation. So I'm just wondering, do we need new laws, new regulations to adapt to these new technologies, given the precision with which AI can replicate but not replicate kind of what's going on?
James, I love that question. Thank you for asking. Yes, we absolutely do. And actually, we have a law that's pending in Congress now. It's called the No Fakes Act. It's bipartisan. It has support all across the political spectrum. So I'm really optimistic that it can get enacted. And what it will do is it will actually provide the right to all of us to actually control and have consent rights over any kind of replication of our image likeness, or voice. And that's something that we don't have now, and a lot of people don't realize this. You think, oh yeah, somebody can't just go out there and take my face and my voice and do something, but as I think I mentioned to you last time we were here, James, someone did that to me during our contract ratification. They made a deepfake video of me saying false things about our contract, and there's no legal remedy for it. So that really has to change, because it's undermining not only the economics of our industry, but it undermines the confidence that our society has in public figures, medical professionals, just everybody.
Wow. And if that law were passed, I don't want to say that would take care of the problem, but how do you prevent people who aren't going to follow the law? How do you prevent kind of unscrupulous actors from doing that? I imagine this is an ongoing game of whack-a-mole, right? We're always going to be having some version of this conversation.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right, but I think also we can't let 100% perfection be the only thing we'll accept, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that law will do is it gives us an intellectual property right in our face, voice, and likeness, and it means that the platforms, like social media platforms, will have to respond to takedown notices and things like that, which they do not have to do right now. Right now, unless it's copyright, they basically don't have to respond to it. So this would give people the right to get that stuff taken down off social media, the same way a copyright owner can.
Now, you spoke about the economics in the business. Are you thinking about, and are you worried about a future where AI allows some people to do a lot of work and other people kind of get shut out? So, a famous actor can replicate themselves 20 dozen times in all these different movies, and then other actors who are also your members aren't able to do as much work. What about the inequality factor here?
No, that is a real concern. It's a hard concern for us to really deal with, because right now there is, being an actor is a very tough job. Like, there's a lot of competition for every role, and most actors have to most of the job is finding the job. So nothing about AI is going to make that better, I don't think. And the sort of inequality issues you mentioned are real. Having said that, I do think the audiences really want that connection. They want to feel that the human performer participated in a project. I mean, if you imagine, take Wicked, for example. If the movie Wicked that's out now, if that had been done entirely with digital replicas of Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo, I don't think the audience would connect with it in the same way. So I do think there's a natural element of audience engagement.
I'm just imagining a super auto-tuned Defying Gravity. That's not what it would be, but that's just where my head went.
Yeah, I mean, so I think there will be some natural limits on it, but you're right, it is a real concern.
Let's talk about video games for a second. Are we still in the midst of a video? Where are we with the video game strike?
We are still in the midst of a video game strike. It's actually been almost 6 months that we've been on strike against the major video game companies, and it's all about AI. The strikes of 2023 were AI plus other issues. The video game strike is all about AI, and I have to tell you, James, it's super frustrating, because really we're fighting for the same principles that the studios, the streamers, and the record labels have all agreed on, which is, informed consent for digital replication and fair compensation. Why the video game companies can't get it together to get us across the finish line on that it's really frustrating, but we're working hard to try and get a deal made there. And but that deal has to be fair to performers, and it has to protect them from abusive uses of AI.
Do they come from that? Does that industry? Do you think it's that they come from a different perspective on the industry, or just think of themselves as a different industry? Obviously, all these things have converged, but do they just come at it from a different angle?
It's funny. Yes, they do think of themselves, and they are a different industry. Having said that, 2 of the biggest companies are also film and TV studios, so it's an interesting convergence. I think it's also, to a certain extent, because they were among the first to use AI technology, in production of any kind of entertainment content. And I think they kind of feel like we're the OGs, and who's anybody else to be telling us how we should use AI? And I get that, but on the other hand, we have to have structured protections for performers so that when they go do one job, that's not their last job. You can't just take that one job's work and use it for the rest of eternity, and they have no career left.
Right. I want to host these C-Space studios in the future too, and not just have some bot be doing it for me.
Let me just say, an AI James Katecki would not be the same.
Oh, I really appreciate your vote of confidence. Beyond, is everything AI now? Is that most of what you think about?
It's a big chunk of what I think about. It's not most of it, because when we talked about the impacts of inflation on people's wages, that was a huge part of the strike of 2023. A lot of people don't remember that because AI is so hot. Yeah. But I do think we're in a moment right now where we have the opportunity to really work together to channel AI in the right direction. And that's one reason why I'm so focused on it right now. That moment isn't going to last forever, and we have to get it right now, because reversing this ship is going to be a tough challenge.
So you and I talk every year, What do you think we're going to be talking about in 5 years? Can you think that far ahead?
Well, one thing it's funny, I was just telling someone this morning, 5 years ago, everyone was freaking out about NFTs, as you may remember, or at least in the entertainment part of the business. And it turned out that was not the right thing to be freaking out about. AI is. I actually do think we'll still be talking about AI in 5 years. It'll be new iterations of it, and it'll be more focused on generative AI and the ability to create fully synthetic content. It's a real concern for us, and we opened the door to that in our negotiations in 23, but we did not get where we needed to get on it, so I'm sure it's going to be an ongoing topic.
And when's the next negotiation scheduled to happen?
About a year and a half from now.
Okay.
James. So yeah,
we'll
not
have a lot
too
to talk
long.
about when we come
We're starting preparations already. Yeah.
Duncan Crabtree, Ireland SAG-AFTRA, thanks so much.
Thanks, James.
And thank you so much for watching this all-too-human conversation. I'm James Kotecki. This is CES 2025. You're in the C-Space studio. Don't go anywhere because many more great conversations are just ahead. welcome back. You're in the C-Space studio here at CES 2025 with me, James Kotecki. We are sponsored this year, as we were last year, by Integral Ad Science. We are so excited about that, and we are so excited to have Integral Ad Science's Chief Product Officer, Shrishti Gupta, here with us in the C-Space studio. Thank you for joining us.
Excited to be here, James.
And thank you for sponsoring. I want to just give you a chance to define the brand. What does IAS mean? And I know you're 3 months in here, so that's just enough time to be dangerous, right? And like, you kind of know a little bit about what's going on. So what does the brand mean here in 2025?
Yeah, so IAS has, for us, it's all about brand effectiveness and brand performance and ensuring that we are building tools around that. And our roots have really been in protection, making sure that brands are in the right place, brand suitability, right, brand equity. And we are on this journey to move towards more ROI and performance-based tools, using actually pretty much the same tech, the same signals we have. So it's really building on our solid foundation and helping marketers, kind of close the gap towards more performance.
Yeah, Mark was mentioning this earlier in another conversation with one of your colleagues here in the C-Space studio, this idea that previously it was all about just keeping away from the bad stuff, right? But now that you know where everything is, you can kind of run towards the good stuff and be more aggressive or assertive or proactive in terms of your approach.
That's exactly right, yeah.
So who do you think is winning and losing the battle for customer attention? And I suppose there's a bunch of different ways you could take that question, but when you think about who's succeeding and who's not when it comes to reaching their audiences, how do you think about framing that up?
Yeah, attention is a very interesting one, because even before we talk about who's winning and losing, think of attention as, first off, understanding it's finite, right? Yes. Extremely fragmented, and it's extremely dependent on the environment the customer finds themselves in. So platforms that are able to create like immersive experiences that are relevant to the customers, and yet advertisers have an effective way of engaging with the customers, those are the ones that are winning. Now for us at IAS, we think of attention as it's measurable and it's actionable. And that's what we're focused on. We're focused on building the tools that provide that. So for example, our quality attention metrics, it helps marketers move beyond viewability in order to actually truly understand customer attention. And we've even expanded on our AI and ML capabilities by bringing in partnerships like Lumen, where we are actually doing eye tracking studies. So enhancing those metrics. And the good thing is these metrics directly tie to business impact. So we see that if there is attention on something, it's likely to perform 130% higher. So there's just the brand effectiveness is high.
You mentioned attention is finite and it's fragmented. What is easier, do you think, to get people to pay more attention in terms of more time and to try and squeeze something else into their day, or to get them to pay better attention? Maybe with things like eye tracking, we can measure whether they're paying better attention to something.
I think it's both. The quality of attention is really important, right? Because at the end of the day, if you want, from an advertising perspective, you want the brand to resonate and have recall. And that ultimately is what matters.
So let's talk AI. We have to talk about AI because this is CES 2025. What are your customers expecting from AI? And then how are you delivering that?
Yeah, well, this is a space that has evolved very, very quickly. So we very quickly moved in advertising from AI being something that is an experimental tool to really now our customers are demanding that, listen, I really want my workflow to be better. I want to be able to get signals and insights much faster. I really need to be able to deliver performance. So that is what we are really focused on. The other thing that we are hearing is that they want more transparency. They really don't want a black box. They want to be able to control the knobs and levers and understand truly what's driving performance. So at IAS, the way we are approaching it, AI is really at the core of what we do. And I've been amazed since I've joined at looking at the breadth and depth of our capabilities. So like we process around 280 billion interactions a day. That's a lot, right? And being able to look at it across hundreds of dimensions. So that is always what we've done. But now through tools like Total Media Performance, which we just announced this week, which I'm very excited about, we're actually now saying, how do you use those tools and drive a higher ROI? And in all of this, we're making sure that it's transparent. So as an example, our product advertisers can actually see what is working, what is not working, and what type of decisioning the AI is actually doing for them.
And what kind of interface, because you're talking about building the product out, what kind of interface do your customers, your clients expect? Do they like a chat interface? Do they want a good old dashboard to see this stuff where the insights maybe they're generated through some kind of natural language? What are you finding that people actually want to use this for from a business perspective?
I think the bigger ask from that we are hearing is not so much about how they interact with it, but how quickly they can. So what we are hearing more is, give me tools that are more real time. I don't want to wait for my campaign to end. I want to be able to actually decision much faster. I want to do it with less effort. So that is what we're hearing a lot more versus how they actually get access to the data.
Do you think people have misconceptions about AI in advertising today?
So many, right? But that's expected. That's expected. It's an evolving industry. I think the biggest one that maybe I worry about a little bit is to think that AI is actually just going to take the strategic oversight away, or it's not going to be needed. Because at the end of the day, advertising, built on the foundation of strong AI, still very much needs creativity, innovation, human judgment. So we think of it as being an enabler to unlocking innovation. We think of it as a 1 + 1 = 3, versus saying that it's it's a substitute. And also making sure that, going back to what I was saying, that it's very transparent and advertisers actually have control over it.
And maybe not within IAS or any of your customers, but are you seeing people really make that mistake of like, oh, I'm going to just rip out the human element of something that I was previously doing with a human, and then maybe they're having that kind of regret after the fact? Are you seeing that really happen?
I think what we are seeing is when the goal is, I want to reduce the number of humans, right? If your goal is, I want to increase the effectiveness of my campaign, how do I do that? That is a very different mindset versus saying, well, I need 15%, 10 people working on it.
Can we talk a bit about cross-industry and kind of cross-customer collaboration? Tell me about how you at IAS are iterating rapidly based on what you're hearing from your clients and customers, and how that kind of partnership works together.
Yeah, so cross-country collaboration, industry collaboration is just so important when you think about this industry, right? Like, it's just so complex with all of the different players. So for us, it's a really important part of our strategy. I'll give you a couple of examples just from the last year. So for example, we've partnered with both TikTok and Meta in making sure that we are helping brands be safer and build on their brand equity through video exclusion lists and content block lists, something that either can't do by themselves. So that's great. I talked about our partnership with Lumen Research, bringing in eye tracking into attention. So these are some examples. Like, we are very much leaned in to solving the problem, making sure that we are doing it wherever we find the right solution.
I looked up your bio, and I know you're passionate about women in STEM fields. Is there something that you want to tell our audience, or kind of encourage people in terms of thinking about how to get more women involved in careers like science, technology, engineering, and math?
Yeah, it's something that I deeply care about, and I think that what I would say is that there are many different paths for women in STEM. So very often we only think of it as like engineering roles, and that's how you get started. There's product development, there's design, there's so many different ways. So I would just say that just because you maybe like one field and not another, do not rule it out as a whole, but actually explore many different paths, and which is actually also much better for your long-term career growth. So I would say take that first step, find a way in, even if it's a different one.
A theme here, I think, from our conversation is just getting as much data as possible, whether that's for your advertising campaigns or your personal life, right?
That's correct.
Is there another question? Is there a question that you think I should ask some of the other leaders that are going to be here in the C-Space studio?
Yeah, I was looking at everyone you'll be talking with, and it's such a fascinating list. For me, I'm always thinking about customer backwards, right? So what are the customer needs that we are still not solving? And I think that would be a really good one to think about. How has everyone's product roadmap actually changed based on what they've heard this year and what is still unmet.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us. Srishti Gupta of Integral Ad Science, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you so much for joining us here in the C-Space studio. I'm James Kotecki. More conversations are coming your way, so keep it right here. This is CES 2025. Welcome back. This is the C-Space studio at CES 2025. I am James Kotecki here with a returning guest, Adam Bergman, Group Vice President, Advertising and Data Sales at Vizio. Adam, welcome back to the C-Space studio.
James, great to see you. Nice to be back.
Since you've been gone, your brand has had a little bit of an update, in your brand story. So what does your brand mean in 2025? I understand that you're now a part of Walmart.
Sure, yeah. We are thrilled to join the Walmart family. We achieved regulatory approval in the beginning of December of 2024, and we're really in early days here. We're thrilled at the partnership. They have been such an important part of our supply narrative in the last 20 years, and more importantly, our role with customers. Every one of us walks into store every day. Every one of us watches television every day. Yeah. So the marriage of our organizations is really fantastic. I think for our brand, it means this continued path of simplicity and elegance in the streaming space. As we think more and more about the way we consume content, the way all of us as viewers sit on our couch at night, we think about how do we go find content. I think one of the things that the Walmart organization has always done well is to be thoughtful and simple for everyday customers. For us, we think about how do we organize and compartmentalize content for our customer base. Yeah. So how do we make it easy to find your favorite sporting event, your favorite show? There's a really great synergy between the organizations, and we're thrilled to be a part of it.
Yeah. So Vizio is obviously behind the TVs and soundbars that we're getting all of this content on. Yeah. Tell me about how you're showing up here at CES 2025, both physically and also your message for people as you individually walk around the show floor.
Yeah, well, physically, I hope you see a lot of us. I hope you see a lot of Vizio TVs rolling around. Look, over the past 5 years, we like to talk, we were a hardware company with a software side hustle. that really has flipped on its head, right? Sure, our job is to build a great product, both with visual and auditory experience, but now more than ever, our responsibility is to deliver a great streaming platform. So it's easy for customers and for viewers and people at home like you and me to sit down, turn on their television and find a great piece of content. So for us, that means a lot of spending time in and around customer experience. What does the television look like? How can it be fast, responsive, and functional? From a media and marketing standpoint, brands want to understand that experience. They want to understand how people are consuming content. When we start thinking about that broader narrative, what does the brand advertising and streaming relationship mean to, I'm now walking into my local Walmart to do my weekly grocery shop or buy products for my family. That relationship is really what we're talking about with the audience here. But at the end of the day, it does come back to making a great streaming experience. That's first and foremost for us always.
And what do you think is the biggest pain point? Maybe not even for someone on a Vizio TV, but if you just ask the average consumer what their biggest pain point with streaming is, what do they say?
We call it the Friday night dilemma. You sit there with your friend, your spouse, your partner, and 15 minutes have gone by and you still haven't picked something to watch. For us, one of our great achievements last year was the launch and build of Vizio Sports Zone. What did we do? We thought about one of the great tentpole moments in television, live sport, and we thought about that in the streaming and the search and discovery experience. So we built an entire new consumer-facing hub for live sports listings where you can organize by league, by team, build favorites, follow your favorite scores, making it really easy to sit down, pick the game you want to watch, pick your streaming service of choice, and off you go. We think about those type experiences to solve those dilemmas. When you're sitting around, we all know it, we've all been there, where you're still searching for content, that's what we want to solve for.
And obviously you're doing this, you're building these interfaces in the context of what's going on with the individual streaming services themselves.
That's right.
So what are you looking at in 2025 as streaming evolves? What are the milestones that you're thinking about and maybe steering towards or steering around as you're building your product?
Yeah, well look, all the great streaming platforms from the studios, from the networks, and those that were born really in the digital age, we all have the same goal, deliver great content to the right viewer. So for us, I think when we talk about milestones, one, it is simplicity and organization. How clear can you make it, no matter whether you're an app owner or a platform owner, how do I get the right piece of content in front of the right audience? How do I, as a customer, find what I want to watch more quickly? Those are the milestones. So when I think about how much time it's taking for somebody to find a piece of content, how do I think about, was the right promotion served to the right audience? How do we really make that experience feel fast, functional, and personable? That's really what we think about, right? The television is a personal device. We want to keep encouraging that relationship.
If consumers are using your interface, do they necessarily care what streaming platform something is on, as long as they own it? In other words, could we get to a future, and some of the other people I talk to on this stage might totally disagree with me, but there's a theory of the case where the consumer's like, just go back to how it was on cable, but I can just kind of find anything I want to, and whatever these streaming services are, I'll buy them when you tell me to buy them, I'll renew them, but I don't even want to see their logo, I don't need to see that, I can just go right to the thing.
I think it's a great question. It's something we think about a lot. I think the reality is it's really a design question. When you're thinking about UI and UX design, that's really what we're thinking about. Our platform in particular, we have always designed for a content-centric approach, meaning you don't necessarily just see a ton of app logos when you power on your Vizio television. What you see are pieces of content that have been recommended to you based on what you've watched. And so when we think about shows that you love, genres that you love, maybe apps that you've watched or accessed content through in the past, we want to surface those again, but we are really about a content-centric approach, not an app-centric approach. And I think that really points to this idea of like, I'm here not to necessarily show my loyalty to a certain app, I'm here to watch a great show or a great movie. We think about that a lot.
But there always would be, I assume, a slightly different UX within these different platforms, for example. For example, when I want to turn on the closed captions on one platform, I have to hit a different button versus the other. So I do still kind of need to be aware, at least, that different platforms exist.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there is a reality, and I think if you look at the history of television, right, and you think about brands and channels and that relationship, when you knew it was an HBO show, that meant something. When you knew it was a show produced by FX, that meant something. We absolutely want to celebrate those creators, those production houses that really have developed a style and a content feel that people love. We always want to celebrate that. I think the reality is when you talk about designing a smart television, designing an interface, you're always thinking about how do I celebrate the creator? Because at the end of the day, our relationship as viewers is with the piece of content. So we want to celebrate those creators, we want to format it in the right way, we want to bring it to life in the right way. There's always going to be the minutia of, okay, now where do I go watch it? Which app am I in? Am I logged in? Am I not logged in? Those are some of the pain points where you start thinking about what's our responsibility from sort of a tops-down view as the platform. platform owner.
And let's talk a little bit more about the advertising, especially as we're going into an era where more and more advertising is powering the streaming services that we're talking about. How do you think about advertising? How does that fit into what you're thinking about?
Yeah, well, there's two truths, right? One, the majority of viewers, myself included, yourself likely, we are moving more towards a streaming first environment to where I'm going to watch. So the way we think about how we define television, whether it came through a coax or a cable or satellite feed or through a streaming app over the top, that's really the shift that has made itself clear, right? So on our platform, more than 65% of time is spent in a streaming environment. That's flipped on its head from 5 years ago.
Wow, okay.
Got it. So now we're in this space. Now, how do we start thinking about the actual wallet pressure of a customer when they're subscribing to 4, 5, 6, 7 services? I think the idea of 5, 6 years ago where cutting the cord was a cost savings exercise isn't necessarily the case for a lot of customers today. So the rise of ad-supported content, whether those be ad-supported subscription tiers within premium streaming apps, or their free ad-supported services like WatchFree Plus, which is Vizio's native television service, I think that relationship, you're seeing a lot more time spent in an ad-supported environment. What's interesting is I think historically, the average viewer wasn't necessarily aware of the relationship between advertising and how content is produced.
Took it for granted.
You took it for granted. You got television, there were scripted commercial breaks, and that was that. Now I think the average person has a much more keen understanding of, got it, I am paying to choose or not to choose to engage in an advertising experience. First of all, we should all be encouraging that choice. That's the goal of the marketplace. But I do think you're going to see more and more time spent, as the trends would show from any analyst house, that you're going to see increased time spent in ad-supported environments, whether those free ad-supported or ad subscription tiers.
And I don't know if there's even a way to define this, but how much upside is there as far as how much better advertisers can be at reaching people in terms of targeting and nuance and being very specific to what that person wants to watch? In other words, how much better can they get at creating commercials that I don't want to mute?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, I think the creative exercise of being thoughtful, being funny, being emotive, right? Like, you want to feel something. And you always say, like, did that commercial make me laugh? Did it make me cry? I love holding advertising creative to the same benchmark that I would a piece of content. What I do think the question there is really, what is the long-term lifespan of the 15 and 30-second spot, as opposed to longer form, integrated, branded experiences where you can really tell a story? That's been a huge part of our relationship with advertising in the last 2 years, is how do you bring advertising out of the in-stream 15 and 30-second pod experience, but now think about how does a brand deliver a content experience to a viewer and do that in a way that's meaningful, where they can get messaging across. I think what the streaming marketplace and specifically the smart television platform has done is allowed us to really step on the gas of, we have to think outside the pod. And I say that as both an advertising business leader and also a marketer who has to think about my messaging when it goes out.
Well, thank you for helping us think outside the pod for a few minutes. Adam Bergman at Vizio, a lot more to talk about. Hopefully you'll come back and join us again.
James, great to see you. Thanks so much.
And thank you so much for watching. This is the C-Space Studio. I'm James Kotecki. We are live, and we will continue very shortly here at CES 2025. Keep it here. Hey, welcome back. You're in the C-Space studio sponsored by Integral Ad Science. I'm your host, James Kotecki. Here at CES 2025, we are talking to luminaries and thought leaders in the areas of marketing, media, branding, and advertising. And joining us now is the CEO of our sponsor, Integral Ad Science, Lisa Uch-Schneider. Thank you for coming back to the C-Space studio. And joining you is Jen Wong, the COO of Reddit. Thank you so much for coming for the first time to the C-Space studio. Welcome to you both.
Thanks, James. Thanks for having us.
Jen, tell me about how Reddit and IAS partner together, how you got together.
Yeah, well, actually, Lisa and I have known each other for a long time, but IAS is obviously one of the leaders in that customers really value in terms of working with other partners. And we announced today our partnership in brand safety. So Reddit is greater than 99% brand safe based on findings from IAS. We did an integration. And we also actually announced earlier last year a pre-bid solution around using IAS's brand safety rubric. So our customers really value the thought leadership of IAS here, and so we're happy to bring that third-party capability to Reddit.
And Lisa, tell me about what that brand safety looks like on Reddit, because if someone is just coming into this conversation saying, well, Reddit, well, anyone can just say anything on that platform, right? So then how do you look at how to actually make that a brand safe environment?
Yeah, so Reddit is such an important strategic platform for IAS, and we're thrilled that we continue to strengthen our partnership together with Reddit. As Jen mentioned, today we announced launching brand safety and suitability on Reddit. And the way to think about that is when you look at a platform like Reddit with its explosive growth, and an important revenue stream is advertising revenue. Advertisers, when they're running ads on Reddit, they want to rest assured that where their ads are running, it's adjacent to content that is brand safe and brand suitable. And so we've launched our technology and we're doing just that and growing with Reddit and also with their advertiser base.
And Jen, are these ads that are, I'm a Reddit user, as I'm sure many people watching are these the ads that are kind of in the thread itself that kind of look like Reddit posts and it says that they're sponsored posts?
They're both. They're both in the feed as well as in the conversation, which is in the comments, which is obviously the most valuable part of Reddit, some of the best of Reddit.
So they always say on Reddit, the real answer's in the comments.
It is. That's where the gold is. Yeah.
And so is part of that too then based on Reddit's ability to kind of show, because people are upvoting and downvoting things on Reddit, obviously. So I imagine that part of this equation is that if something is, getting a ton of downvotes, that might be a signal that maybe that's not the most brand safe place to be potentially.
Not necessarily. Just for context, we do our own first-party adjacency checks, et cetera. So that's obviously, really important for how we serve our ads and think about brand safety. And then obviously, customers can work with IAS to have, their third-party technology as well as an option. Posts, they can be upvoted, they can be downvoted. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's the brand unsafe or brand suitable.
Okay.
It's really about giving the advertisers choice and controls over what's important to them. And that's very different per advertiser, what is sensitive to them. And so that's what it allows them to do. It's less about the voting and more about the context that they want to be in.
Interesting. Lisa, congratulations on this announcement with Reddit. What are the overall trends that you're looking at as we head here into 2025? What are some things that you want to tell the industry that they should be focused on?
Yeah, in addition to announcing our partnership, continuation of our partnership with Reddit by launching brand safety and suitability, we also announced today that we launched Total Media Performance. And the way to think about that, it's an evolution of IAS's solutions. The company, we've been around for 15 years. We're a leader in global measurement and optimization, offering solutions like viewability, invalid traffic detection, brand safety and suitability, ensuring for brands and publishers that they are operating in a transparent environment. We are helping brands drive greater efficiency. We're now evolving it into performance, and that is a big theme you'll be hearing from IAS this year, is helping brands and platforms and publishers drive greater performance, greater efficiency, while they're also ensuring that the environment for the brands is brand safe and brand suitable.
And what are advertisers saying? I know that it sounds like you've recently just announced this, but are advertisers getting excited about this in terms of, my understanding is that it's kind of like, you take all the learnings about how to stay away from the bad stuff, and now you figure out how to get more of the good stuff, and figure out how to go at the things that matter.
That's right, exactly. So things like dynamic optimization, driving greater ROI in programmatic environments, taking the black box out of the buying process for the brands, providing greater transparency. So again, it's helping them drive higher ROI.
Yeah. And Jen, how does technology like IAS's technology and that partnership, how does that enhance the brand of Reddit itself? Because again, I wonder if you get different levels of kind of advertisers' understanding or comfortableness with Reddit when they first, might think about advertising on a platform, a social media, user-generated content platform like Reddit. So then how important is it to have partnerships like this to get that Reddit brand itself where you want it to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we believe in giving advertisers choice. Right? Different advertisers and different brands have different perspectives about the content they want to be around and whether they want third-party verification or they want to lean on first-party verification and the things that we do with our technology. And we believe that allows them to get the outcomes that they want. So that it is really important because a lot of customers really value the third-party technology and capability on top of the first-party. I think, look, Reddit's a place of immense conversation. Like, it's growing so quickly. It covers every topic in the planet. It's so vast. Our business is growing. We're adding new advertisers all the time. So yes, it's a great opportunity for advertisers to see, okay, what is the best way that I want to show up on Reddit and be given all of the options that they want to show up on Reddit in the way that they want.
Lisa, do you see brands investing more in social media and video platforms? Why are they excited about doing something like that?
Yeah, brands want to be where the consumers are. And when you take a look at the trends over the last few years, it's short form video adoption, it's social platforms, and brands want to be there. And the reality of many of the social platforms, it's user generated content. A great example is Reddit. It is dynamic, it is unpredictable, but brands want to engage with the consumers in these environments. And what's critical is that we continue to invest in our AI-powered technology. The technology is accurate, it is sophisticated, it's granular, and again, we're ensuring that the brands are running in brand-safe, brand-suitable environments.
We spoke with two of your leadership members here in the C-Space studio from IAS, always about AI. The conversation never stops being about AI here in the C-Space studio, and so I'm glad you brought that up too. Jen, how are you thinking about, I'm sure there's a lot of different answers to this question, so maybe just from your perspective as the COO, how are you thinking about AI when it comes to Reddit? Generative AI or just AI generally, what's your, I guess, philosophy on that, just in the way you frame it up? Because it's evolving and changing all the time, but what are some of the core philosophies you think about as you think about how that gets used?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, AI touches what we do in so many different ways. I mean, first of all, Reddit's corpus of human intelligence and conversation is actually a source of training for AI models. Like, the way AI intelligence is powered is by human intelligence, which is by Reddit, and it's the biggest corpus there is. So we play a very important role in developing that technology and contributing to it. AI is also an incredible opportunity for our platform, for the experience of our users and our moderators, and the way that they can build tools. We can build tools for them to help them moderate and help people be successful in posting. We use AI for machine translation to enable, I think, what is an incredible opportunity to have a global conversation, things that are universal, where you can take language out as a barrier. Parenting, life experience, frankly, products that are global, discussions about media entertainment, like pop culture. These things can be, you can take the language friction out with AI. So incredible opportunity there. And then in the work that we're doing in our advertising platform, I think just the ability to generate creative variants that really are tuned to the Reddit audience, that increase the performance and the resonance and the engagement, that's an incredible opportunity. And then packaging that all together with insights. I think that's the most important part. I think performance is incredibly important, and you see a drive in the industry toward performance. That's great, but it can't just be a black box. What you really want is the insights, and I think AI allows us to enable translating all of the success into insights that allow marketers to be more strategic and better. And I think Reddit is a real trove for that. We see that as a big opportunity.
And I love to see the passion about that. Lisa, do you have an AI philosophy that you use as you're guiding your team to make decisions about how to build products and interact with customers?
Sure. I mean, similar to what Jen has just said so eloquently, IAS, we've been leveraging and working with AI for years. Our multimedia classification is incredibly sophisticated, granular, classifying video, image, audio, text, near real time within live feeds. So leveraging OpenAI for things like language translation, misinformation detection, which is highly nuanced, deep fake detection. And the beauty of AI, and it's something I've noticed at CES this year compared to a year ago, the AI buzz was everywhere at CES. It was sort of the word topic du jour. Yeah. And what I love is this year is everyone's coming back to Vegas and sharing real use cases. Here is the more pragmatic, more specific, here's how we're leveraging AI, and IAS is doing just that every day on behalf of our customers to ensure our technology is more sophisticated.
Well, Lisa Uchschneider, CEO of Integral Ad Science, Jen Wong, COO of Reddit, thank you both for joining us here in the C-Space studio.
Thanks you, James. Thank you.
And thank you, of course, to Integral Ad Science for sponsoring the C-Space studio. I'm James Kotecki. More conversations are just ahead, so stay with us. This is CES 2025. Welcome back to the C-Space studio here at CES
So this is Charlie, he's with our comms
2025.
team.
I am James Kotecki, your host, and our guest is Harvey
they're
Ma,
fine. Like, people
Vice
have been, like,
President
taking
and General
photos and
Manager,
stuff. You can sort of
Sam's
come
Club
around.
Member
Awesome.
Access Platform. Welcome to the C-Space
And this-
studio.
Thank you, James.
This should give you an idea.
And
of
great
what it's
pocket
like.
square too. I
Hey.
like the little design on that.
I like it.
Pocket square to pocket square, we got we have a certain understanding.
We got
I
the
think-
memo.
I think. And one thing I also want to understand and have people understand who are watching this is, can you just quickly explain what is Sam's Club Member Access Platform? Sam's Club. Do you go MAP or MAP?
You know, you can do whatever works easier for you.
Okay.
MAP is the acronym for
Yes.
Member Access Platform. In other words, the buzzword here, we are the retail media network on
Yes.
behalf of Sam's Club. And the great thing is we use all of that member data to drive really awesome ad experiences to reach members both on, off, and inside of clubs.
So let's talk about that. So if people aren't Sam's Club members, or even if they are, tell us about all the different places that you're reaching them. So it's on their device when they're looking at things, it's in stores, on screens. Tell us about the scope here that we're talking about.
Yeah, scope would be what you would consider traditional media mix. So everything from on-platform, off-platform, search display, on-site, off-site. I think what makes us really unique, though, is these omni experiences. We'll talk a little bit more about that, James. But the ability now to reach members and non-members, even before they start that digital journey, is really critical for us.
And what's the scope? What's the physical footprint of Sam's Clubs? How many members or how many places are there Sam's Clubs in the country?
Right now, from a member data perspective, 44 million member unique IDs, and we've got almost 500 clubs across the country right now.
And so, what does this do for your data that this is a membership organization? Because my understanding is people have to become members of Sam's Club. You can't just walk in there, right? Like you have to sign up to go and shop at Sam's Club. And so, does that create a significant advantage for you as far as having this data and using it for the retail media network purposes?
We believe it does. And so, from a retail media perspective, you're going to hear us talk about the term member deterministic data quite a bit. Shopping at a grocery store, shopping at a mass retailer, and shopping in a club are very different experiences. The advantage for us is that we have what we call virtually every single transaction and every interaction tracked at the member level, both inside and outside of the club.
And so that seems like a lot of data. And I understand that you recently did an advertising launch inside of the Sam's Club app. So what is that and what's been the reaction to that?
Really excited about that one, James. So we call it Scan and Go. We believe we are the first retailer to actually have a member frictionless checkout experience where we're serving display ads within the experience. And so we talk a lot about in-store, in-club retail media technology these days. This really means that at the point of sale, we have virtually every single member on a one-to-one basis captured with the ability to serve them messaging, ads, and experience that enhances their journey.
And tell me about that checkout experience. So is it when they're literally at the checkout, you're giving them ads at that point, or are they kind of checking out while they're shopping? In other words, what can the ads influence them to do if they're presumably they're not already finished shopping, right? Or maybe it's for next time.
Our entire mission is to make a member's journey as frictionless as possible. So we see lots of different behaviors. Either we have them scan and go, so they'll load their basket and they'll start scanning as they shop. You'll see happening all at one time to the checkout, or you'll see families shopping in multiple areas of the store, dumping it into the basket,
Divide and conquer.
and you'll see them all shopping at the same time. But it really is at the member's choice.
So give me a sense of the retail media network space at this point. You hear about, it's still relatively nascent compared to how big it could be. Like, what's your sense of the overall opportunity in this space to reach people while they're shopping, just generally?
The space is still massive. I think the real uniqueness about retail media is the ability now to measure all those things that from an advertising standpoint were really more about impressions and reaching people. And so I think the opportunity for us is immense, but also then the responsibility is immense.
You teased us earlier with this idea of an omni experience, so tell us more about that.
Yeah, shopping should be fun. We believe at Sam's Club that shopping should be fun again. So we talk a lot about why do people choose to shop at a club versus a traditional grocery trip or a traditional mass retailer, and we always hear the same few things. We hear value, we hear experience, and then we hear trust. Members are paying us with the expectation that we're going to deliver on something fantastic. And so making shopping fun again is what we're trying to emulate from a retail media experience. So omni experiences are, what better way than to actually taste the food,
see the food, smell the food, engage with the event. Those are really what omni experiences are about, and then our job is to figure out how to measure that engagement and show return for an advertiser.
And are they being prompted to do these fun activities through advertising or through the same kind of network approach that you would reach them for other kind of ads, or how does that connect? How does tasting food connect to these digital experiences that you're creating?
Let me give you a real-time stat. So we know that for folks that are doing their pre-shopping trip at Sam's Club, 41% are actually making an online visit before they even go into the club.
I see.
Of those, 37% of those sales are actually coming from that same member. So for us, it's to figure out how to connect that experience end to end. So it's really however they want to engage. Some might actually show up to an event at the club, not even knowing that the item they're tasting on a food truck is something they might buy down the road. Again, our job is to figure out which moment of exposure will that be, and how do we drive that engagement farther to make sure that's truly incremental, another buzzword, James, incremental to the journey.
Let me give you another buzzword, gamification. Do you see gamification as playing a role in shaping and curating the experiences of your members through something like digital advertising?
We do. Again, going back to shopping has to be fun again, we hear the words treasure hunt a lot. So how do you do it in a way that doesn't make it feel like you're just serving advertising in a way that's self-fulfilling? So gamification in a variety of forms is fun. For example, picking up and trying a demo inside of a club in real time in some ways can be considered gamification. That treasure hunt is what we're really looking for at Sam's Club.
Do you think 2025 is going to look fundamentally different for retail media? Is this, if we're talking about it's about ready to explode, is this the year that it happens?
We're living in an era now where it feels like every day, every week, every month we see a new retail media network launching. 2025, in my belief, will be fundamentally different because the stakes will be much higher. No longer will it be, hey, guess what? We're launching an RMN, give us your money. It's going to be a lot about, great, you've launched one. Now here are a lot of players in the space. What are you doing that's uniquely different? And again, that word incrementality, that's probably the single biggest thing I've heard throughout the course of this show.
I looked at your bio and I understand that you're on the board of an organization that fights human trafficking. And that's a very serious issue, and it seems like maybe a very separate issue from what we're talking about. But do you see overlap in the way that you think about or approach these kinds of challenges? Absolutely. Part of the reason why I joined this nonprofit is because we should use these corporate superpowers for good. And the same way that nonprofits are looking to reach specific audiences and people, this can be the same thing that we use in corporate language, personalization, loyalty, those things are all interchangeable, just used for different causes. Okay. Well, let me do one more for you. 2025 will be the year of blank. For retail media, we believe it'll be about this omni-channel or connected commerce experience. So this meshing of physical and digital, phygital is the word, that really should be what we're talking about. That really is the word? Phygital. Okay, yeah, I got to start using phygital more in my day-to-day life. But really it shouldn't be about like, do I start my journey online? Do I make my purchase in club? Yeah. What's the whole connected experience look like? This should be the year we start to figure that out. Well, thank you for this fidgetally enlightening conversation. Harvey Ma, Sam's Club member access platform, Sam's Club Map. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Thanks for having me, James. Appreciate it. And thank you so much for watching. This is the C-Space Studio. I'm James Kotecki. Please keep it right here because more great conversations are just ahead from CES 2025. Welcome back to the C-Space studio here at CES 2025. I am James Kotecki, and I am joined by Tony Marlowe, CMO of LG Ad Solutions. Thank you so much for joining us.
James, thanks for having us.
So what's your message here at CES 2025? And actually, first let me ask, what is your brand definition? So people might know LG, right, TVs, and what is the ad solutions part of that business actually looks like?
Yeah, good question. So we operate in the connected television space, CTV. So we have the footprint of almost 200 million LG TVs worldwide. And on the vast majority of those TVs is a fast service called LG Channels. We help put advertising into this free cable-like multi-channel experience, as well as within the native environment of these connected televisions.
So what brings you to, what brings you to CES 2025? It's a loaded question, but what's your message here at CES 2025?
You know, there's a lot of cool things going on this year. For us, I think we see this as a real pivotal moment. 2025 is the year that marketers and media planners are going to go all in on connected TV. And I think we've seen the growth to this point, so it's something we call the big shift. So right up until the pandemic, TV viewership was primarily driven by linear minutes. The pandemic drove a shift into streaming minutes, and at that point in time in 2020 into early 2021, it was really characterized by subscription CTV.
Yeah.
Now, people are starting to adopt free ad-supported streaming services. So as you're looking at things like economic headwinds, streamflation, the cost of having 5, 6, 7 or more different apps, it's really adding up, and people are supplementing with free services like LG Channels. And so the growth has happened in terms of the viewership and the ads that are there. So now, and we believe 2025 will be the year where you'll see what we call crossover, meaning there'll be more non-pay TV households than pay TV households, and the marketer will be CTV first. It won't be an afterthought.
And do people have to log in for the fast advertising supported service that you're talking about?
Well, when you first acquire a TV, there is a login process, but basically no, you turn it on, it's there. As long as your TV is plugged into the wall and connected to the internet, you have hundreds of channels for free.
But what I'm getting at is back in the linear days, someone could turn on a TV and you wouldn't really know who that person was. Now, if you're serving it out to someone, you at least have some idea of who they are, what family they're in, et cetera, what TV that is.
You know, I like to think of it as CTV is not your grandmother's TV. So connected TV gives you the sight, sound, and motion that we've always loved about TV, but to your point, it's also the addressability that we've loved through digital channels. Being able to put relevant content and relevant advertising is a big win for the user experience.
And how much more relevant can you be, not necessarily knowing the individual person who's watching, but knowing at least some basic information from that login, and then how much more data are you able to collect based on viewing patterns and things like that?
Yeah, so firstly, obviously we always do things in a privacy-friendly manner, compliant. And most of our clients are most interested in our ACR data. For any of your viewers who don't know what that is, that's automatic content recognition. Essentially, it's the viewership patterns. So we know, is this a sports household? Are they movie buffs? Are they into the news? And that can really inform a really privacy-friendly way of being able to stay relevant, enabling these advertisers to connect with audiences without having to really know a lot about them, and certainly the PII. You couple that with other data signals, and I love to use this example. Take weather. It seems innocuous, like sunny outside, it's rainy outside, maybe it's snowy, depending on where you are at. You can do things like leverage that data in conjunction with the ad, optimize the ad. Maybe you're a clothing retailer, snowing where you are, you see snow coats. Maybe it's sunny where I am, I'm seeing shorts and a t-shirt. And so using that data, you don't necessarily need the PII to be highly relevant. Things like weather, things like ACR, things like countdowns to the Super Bowl, they're really popular with our marketers.
And then what's the crossover opportunity for an advertiser to follow someone or to engage someone as they're moving between an advertising supported, cable-like just flip it on and flip around kind of thing versus on-demand shows?
Yeah, so firstly I think, and this is a part of going all in on CTV in 2025, I think we're going to start seeing things like content discovery hit the glass level, and I need to explain what I mean by that. Right now, to get your recommendations, it kind of is trapped within a given app. You might have 5, 6, 7, 8 different apps on your television, and each one of them might do a great job of saying, because you watched A, you might like B, C, D. And I think what you'll see from LG TVs before this year is out is at your home screen when your experience starts, an AI-driven recommendation engine that considers the totality of all the things you have access to, the totality of your viewing, even considers your linear viewing and makes those recommendations. So it's no longer going to be that these recommendations are trapped within the app or the OTT provider, it's going to be at the glass level.
So then how important are the brands of the individual streaming services themselves, and then how much from a consumer perspective are they just turning on TV and flipping around and I'm not even fully aware of what streaming platform that was on? As long as I owned it, I'm fine.
It's a tough question. I do think that consumers are becoming increasingly agnostic about the source of the content, although you gain favorability about, you know which wells to go to for the content that you want. But I do think switching between
certain quality
apps,
expectation of certain brands,
Yeah, I think there's certain quality expectations. I think switching can be a pain point for some of the consumers. And so this is part of the discovery engine, being agnostic around where the show that you want to watch is and just being able to have it bubble up, have it turn on, and maybe you don't even know that it's Netflix or Hulu, it just turns up. And I think we are headed there very faster than many might realize.
So we're not just sitting back and watching on these screens, we're gaming on them as well. Tell me about what's going on with gaming.
Yeah, so I like to think TV, and I mentioned before, we view connected TV as not your grandmother's TV. Used to be lean back, it used to be passive, it's now an immersive experience. So whether you're talking cloud gaming, and by the way, we had an NVIDIA announcement and an additional, I think we had additional few hundred extra games. We have more than 2,000 titles baked into these LG TVs. Some of them you can play with your remote. Lots of cool gaming options. But what excites me the most is gaming is lean in, shoppable experiences baked into your TV, cloud fitness, doing yoga in your living room, maybe other types of exercise. TV's not just a sit back and eat some popcorn experience anymore. Yes, you have that, but it's so much more.
And will I see all of these things hit the glass, as you say, at the same time? Do you want to game? Do you want to do yoga? Do you want to cook something? Or do you want to watch this TV? I could see all of that in one kind of interface.
Yeah, and I think we like to think of them as hubs. So you can choose, are you in workout mode? Are you in shopping mode? And you can navigate through these hubs and then choose the experience that you're looking at. But the discovery thing, I can't overemphasize it. Our data shows that between, and I might ask you to guess, how long do you think it takes between turning your TV on and then ultimately landing on a show to watch?
Ooh, I mean, 10 minutes?
Well, that's actually a pretty good guess. 11 and a half minutes, a little more than 11 and a half minutes.
Which is an eternity of time that I could be doing so much more productive things with, or you could be showing me ads, or I could be watching content, or I could be doing a yoga class or something like that, right?
And
it's a long time.
Two stories there. You kind of hit on one of them. So one is the premium CTV native ad experience. So there are ads that are baked right into the home screen. Media and entertainment category love it. So stream our movie that's available for rent right now, or download our app. They love that ad space. But then the other part is that discoverability thing, where I think we'll see that number come down as AI makes it easier to find the things that you want. So there's sort of a tale of two cities with that, but it is an interesting space. And I don't think we'll ever get rid of the debate on the couch. I would like to watch this, no, I'd like to watch that. But I do think AI is going to speed up that process significantly.
Okay, here's a pitch. So you can download my brain and my wife's brain, right? And you can have two Gen AI kind of replicas of us. They can kind of debate it. And then they can just synthesize, if you two were to debate about the show, here's who would have won and here's why, and they can just kind of synthesize that and just start auto-playing the show that we would have picked, which is ultimately going to be Great British Bake Off anyway, I think, which is what my wife would want to watch.
That's hilarious. We can't do that yet, and it's a little Black Mirror-ish, but one of the things that I do love, and I think you'll see this soon, is voice identification in the remote. So you might say to your remote, hey, find me some comedy. Not only will it do what it asked you to do, and this is all opt-in, so you would need to consent and opt-in, but it recognizes that it's you, James, not your wife.
The kind of comedy
and
I like.
Shows it's like a login-less profile. And so I think that makes the process a little easier. The Black Mirror thing, I think we're a little ways away from that though.
Is there anything that, speaking of kind of fanciful technologies or a little bit more into the future, are there things that you think are coming technologically that others in your industry think might be implausible and that you do believe are happening?
And I'm sure this is an overused sort of thing right here, but artificial intelligence, I believe, as a species, we are not prepared for the speed and veracity with which it's coming at us. We tend to believe things progress on a linear fashion and that they're happening on an exponential fashion. Even, I'm not sure if you caught NVIDIA's announcement this week.
Here at CES.
Here at CES, they're talking about like we're on the dawn of the age of humanoid robots having artificial intelligence. And I think things like that are much closer than is realized. Autonomous driving, it's already here. I don't know if you've ever taken a Waymo or similar. It's here and it's right now. In terms of the ad space, I think it's around dynamic content, dynamic creative optimization.
Yeah.
I think it's about segment creation, and I think it's about matching those two things to make the best fit.
Well, it's interesting, speaking of linear versus exponential, because even if humans, we think linearly most of the time, and even if we say, oh yeah, I should be thinking exponentially about this, it's still hard to think about that. So even as much as you and I are saying, oh yeah, we believe it's exponential, we probably are still underestimating the potential.
Absolutely. Being able to know that's a problem doesn't exempt you from having that same issue. 100% true.
Well, we have a lot more to talk about. Hopefully you come back. Tony Marlowe, LG Ad Solutions, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for joining us. We are at CES 2025. My name is James Kotecki, and this is the C-Space Studio, where we talk to marketing, media, branding, and advertising leaders about the future of really human connection. We have a lot more great conversations to come this afternoon. Our live stream will continue then, so please come back. I'm James Kotecki, and this is the C-Space Studio.